Hey, everybody, welcome back. So today we're going to have a really, really exciting podcast. So whether you're here, you're usually listening to Craig's podcast, or you're here and you're usually listening to my podcast, we're actually doing a dual podcast, so a dual interview. So I'm going to interview Craig, and Craig's going to interview me. So if you don't know me, I'm going to introduce myself real quick. My name is Evan Ryan. I'm the founder of a company called Teammate AI. I'm the author of a #1 best-selling book called AI is Your Teammate, Electrify Growth Without Increasing Payroll. My whole purpose in life is to do fun stuff and to not do boring stuff. And my company does AI to automate people's boring tasks, boring processes, boring sort of aspects to their jobs. So they can focus on much more fun, fulfilling, exciting things that move the ball forward in their work life. Craig, I'll pass it over to you to introduce yourself, and then, let's just dive right in.
Sure. Thanks, Evan. My name is Craig Hersch. I'm a Florida Bar Board certified wills, trusts, and estates attorney. I'm also a CPA. I've authored 7 books. I'm working on my 8th now, entitled The New Rich, a proven playbook for smart entrepreneurs to leverage the system, lower taxes for good, and generate significant wealth. I'm also on the editorial advisory board for Trust and Estates Magazine, which is a trade journal for CPAs, estate planning attorneys, and trust officers, and those in the financial field. And we've had the pleasure of using Evan's uh, uh, systems and programs. We're working with him now to develop some AI for lawyers and CPAs and trust financial officers. So there we have it.
Yeah, and I actually think, Craig, I think that you might have been a bit humble. Craig's sort of I'll add to Craig's bio for him. Craig's a little kind of the go-to guy, especially for ambitious estate planning, for ambitious entrepreneurs. And he's not just a great lawyer for his clients, he's a great lawyer for lawyers. And so I'm really excited because, Craig, I think you're a really smart guy, and I'm looking forward to just sort of like diving into the world of AI.
Well, like,
Um, so first question that I have for you here is, as you look at AI in law, so kind of prefacing this question a little bit, I think there are a lot of people in the tech world, especially a lot of people in Silicon Valley, that are desperately hoping that AI replaces lawyers.
okay. Yeah, I
They
mean,
are desperately hoping it.
I wouldn't fault them for hoping that AI can replace lawyers. I think, who wants to deal with lawyers, right?
Yeah, I haven't met a lot of people. I will admit, I've not met a lot of people who said, I just had the best meeting of my day today. It
Yeah,
was with the lawyers. Right. But,
that,
I'd like to think that the way that AI and law will sort of work together is that it'll make lawyers much more collaborative with their client. It'll remove a lot of the back office stuff, and it'll make it so that, you have a lawyer, you have your law firm, they're a member of your team, you really trust them. But I want to kind of get your take, in a perfect world, how do you think AI is affecting the law space? What do you think is the best way to sort of transform law with this new tech?
yeah, I think that's a great question, Evan. Well, first you have to understand what type of lawyer I am, which is an estate planning lawyer. And we do a lot of tax law. And what a lot of people believe estate planning is, you know, uh, my plan for my death, where all my assets are going. But what my new book is about is the fact that estate planning can focus on your lifetime by structuring assets to protect them, structuring assets to minimize taxes, and even make more money. Where AI comes in for an office practitioner like myself has to do with maybe some clerical type tasks or even paralegal type tasks that used to take a long time to do. For example, summarizing a meeting, putting it into a letter format, letting the client know what their choices are, and those sorts of things. So I think AI could save lawyers, in particular, those office practitioners like myself, hundreds of thousands of hours over, the course of many years, and doing it better, doing it faster, and doing it in such a way that it talks to the client in a language that they can understand. And that's what I'm hoping AI can do.
Yeah. And, I think I've talked to a lot of lawyers. And I haven't heard anybody say, the thing I was looking forward to most in law school was capturing meeting notes,
Right.
right? And then sending out the letters. Well, like the thing I was looking forward to most was I was looking forward to going to the library and scouring through the law journals. Right.
Yeah.
And it just feels like there are so many low hanging fruit opportunities here that first of all, improve the lives of the lawyers, but then second of all, free up brain space. Like the fewer tasks that you have to do,
Hmm.
like the more you get to dive deep into the stuff that really matters. But if you're just overwhelmed with tasks, like you're going to do a lot of activities, but you're not going to be a hero to anybody.
Yeah, automation is key, and I'm going to ask you a question about automation in just a minute. But there's a lot of tasks like research, like preparing letters, summarizing meetings, even coming up with a paragraph that you're going to use in a white paper for clients, or even writing my book. I'm using AI to help me write my book. There's so many tasks that AI could do, and the more that you automate those tasks, the less people that you need in your office to do them. But let me ask you this, Evan, what's the challenge in working, aside from all the challenges that you normally have in working with lawyers? What's the challenge that you have in working with lawyers to help them automate?
You know, the challenge is almost never the technology.
Hmm.
And this is pretty standard, especially across a lot of the professional fields. Um, the challenge is rarely the technology. The challenge is usually it's the people.
Hmm.
It's I have a certain way of doing things, and if I'm not the one doing it, I can't trust that it's getting done properly.
Yeah.
Um,
The rugged
and
individualist. Yep.
yes, yes, the rugged individualist. I also think um, there are I think the biggest precursor, the biggest prerequisite to being really successful with AI and automation is having a bigger future for
Yeah.
what you want to do after the AI or the automation is implemented. And I find that with law firms and with lawyers, a lot of times there isn't, a really clearly defined bigger future. It's mostly just like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
But that becomes really challenging because then there's always another roadblock, or it creates the opportunity where there could be always another roadblock towards making the automation or making the AI successful.
I coach other estate planning lawyers in my freedom practice network. And what I found is exactly what you're saying here, is that you have a lot of individuals. Most lawyers are what we would call technicians and rugged individualists. So like you said, they don't trust somebody else to do the work. They don't even trust automation if they're the ones who are, working with somebody like you to set it up. They just don't trust it. So, one of the things that I always try to coach them up is you have to delegate and you have to let go of some things. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't review it and make sure it's exactly the way you want it. For a lot of stuff like what AI spits out at me right now, I have to, tweak and edit and so forth in order to make it exactly the way that I want it. But getting that first draft done takes, just takes a load off me, where
Oh my gosh, yeah.
that would take, hours just by itself. So, um, ultimately the client benefits because I'm working faster, I'm working more efficiently, and so is my team. But I agree with you, the rugged individuals. I have an entrepreneurial mindset, as we're in some coaching programs together, some entrepreneurial coaching sessions. So my mindset is one of, well, how can we do this better, faster, cheaper, and have it more effective? Whereas a lot of lawyers don't trust that. So I think one of the things that I help coach them is, there's something called the 80% rule, where you get it to 80% and then take it from there. So tell me, when we're automating and we're trying to get to that 80%, what's the what's the most significant thing that a lawyer could tell you as the AI developer in what they're trying to accomplish?
I think the first thing is, the questions that we ask when we're trying to get to the first 80% are who, what, why, where, and how. So who's doing the task? Why are they doing it? How is it happening? What pieces of software, what systems are you using? What's the thinking that you have? What's the logic that you have? When do you do it? When do you not do it? And I think that's really the first and most important thing. If the question is an adverb, who, what, or an adjective, who, what, why, where, how, really, really important. Because I think one of the things with with the legal industry that's really challenging is below a certain number of employees. And this, I guess this is really this is across industries, but I've noticed it in law. Below a certain number of employees, you can really get along just fine without having defined systems and processes.
Mm, yeah. If you have
Um,
maybe a lawyer and 2 or 3 support staff, I would agree with you.
right,
Yeah.
right. Even if you have 3 or 4 lawyers and they each have 2 or 3 or 4 support staff, they can turn into their own little mini teams. They all use the same software, but they have very different standard operating procedures. And so the first thing is it's starting to define like what actually happens in your company. And the easiest way to do it is to keep track of all the tasks that you do. Number
Yeah.
one. So it's like, okay, what do you do?
Yeah, we asked our staff to do that, and then you interviewed the staff to find
Yeah.
out what we're doing. Right.
Yeah. It's usually pretty sobering. Because yeah, people go, oh boy, I
You
didn't
have
know
to
I
do
do all
all
this
that in
crap.
order to create this? Yeah, I got you.
um, I think the other thing is where in this first 80% or where in this task, where do you apply uniqueness?
Mhm. Or
So where are you unique? Yeah.
value creation, yeah.
Yeah. And if there are areas where, you could do it or somebody else could do it or somebody off the street could do it, and it's all going to be pretty much the same, we should give that to a computer.
Mhm.
But if there are areas where you're really unique, then we should absolutely not give it to a computer. Uniqueness should be retained. We just want to accelerate it, which is what I think I want to ask you about. You're using AI to write your book. So do you mind kind of like walking me through that process a little bit and tell me too, if you wouldn't mind, where do you step in the book writing process? Are you on the front end? Are you on the back end? Are you in the middle? Are you all of the above? Tell me a little bit about what you're doing there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I'm working with one of our fellow colleagues, Carrie Oberbrunner,
Oh yeah.
it's Igniting Souls, publishing company, for this next book. Up till now, the books that I've written, I wrote from the beginning to end, and, it took me hours and hours and hours. Typically, I would sit after, dinner with my family, and all my children are grown now, so you kinda have an idea, when I did these. I would sit down after dinner while they're all watching TV with my laptop, and I'd type a chapter or type half of a chapter, and that's what I would do. Now, here's what I did. I told AI what I was after, the end result. This is a type of book that I want to discuss A, B, and C. And then I said, okay. And by the way, I made a Craig bot, so I'll have you talk about what a Craig bot might look like, okay, and how it
Yeah.
created that. And the Craig bot basically I've written a weekly column in a local newspaper for 20 some years. I've written untold number of columns that have been published professionally in trade journals like Trust and Estates magazine. I wrote my books. So I fed the Craig bot all that. So it had a sense of how I write and communicate. So Craig bot came up with an outline, which I edited. And by the way, after I was done with it, I fed the Craig bot the outline. Here's what I came up with after editing what you came up with, sort of thing. Then for each chapter, I would say, okay, now in this chapter, this section of the chapter, I want to write about X. Give me a first draft. And it'll give me a first draft. I might say, that's only 500 words. I want this expanded. I want 3,500 words. Here's the points that I want to make. And then sometimes I'd even ask, I remember a court case that I went to Perplexity, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Oh yeah.
And I went to Perplexity because Perplexity gives you citations. So I wanted to ask Perplexity, okay, here's the court case. Tell me, summarize it for me for a layman. And then I would pop it in as a story in the chapter. So that's how I'm writing it. Before, what would I have to do? I'd either have to hire a research assistant, right, to go find those things. And then I'd have to write the first draft of whatever it was that we were doing. That's just one small saving. So let me ask you. So why don't you tell our audience more about like what a Craigbot is? How do you create something like that? And then, as far as the way I'm using AI, I'm sure there's other ways that I could do it even better. So why don't you expand a little bit on those topics?
Yeah. So a Craig bot, correct me if I take this way too far, which I have a tendency to do. So a Craig bot would be where you take all of Craig's everything that he's put out, all the things that he's talked about, and you essentially load it into an AI. So for this example, let's use ChatGPT. So with
That's
ChatGPT, you
where
can
we,
essentially, oh, okay, great. So with ChatGPT, you can essentially create your own little mini version of ChatGPT, where you can load in what they call knowledge. You can also load in some custom instructions so that it can sound, it can act a little bit more like you. You can give it some like boundary limits essentially to be more and more and more like you. Now, it's not meant to be a replacement to you. It's meant to be more be an extension of you or be an accelerant to you, sort of like an assistant that you have that where you've worked together for 10 years and they're essentially like having a second brain.
yeah.
Or they're, yes. And so what you can do is you can essentially load all of these different writings, all these different things that you put together into what they call a knowledge. And so it takes this knowledge, it applies it to the existing ChatGPT technology. And now it's like you're talking to Craig, except it only knows the stuff that Craig said, or it only talks talks in the same way that Craig writes. And so it's like kind of a nice little way to accelerate your thinking.
And let me ask you this: with it's my understanding the Craig bot isn't out there in the general part of ChatGPT educating everybody else. That's just mine. Is that right, or is it actually
It is
helping everybody else?
it so it depends on how you set your settings. So my expectation is that you did not publish it for all the world to see.
No.
I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
especially if I use a Craig bot to like write letters to clients. So
oh yeah.
I don't want the fact based knowledge. Although I try to not use a client's last name, and things like that to make it a little bit more anonymous. Should it get out there into the general world? But my understanding that you can set these settings, at least with ChatGPT, when we're using the Craig bot, in such a way that whatever you're telling it or feeding it, it's not going out to the general public. Is that right?
That's correct. And it's not going back to OpenAI. So
Right.
OpenAI is also not using it to, improve their AI algorithms. And so, yeah, that's all staying right there, but using it for the emails, that's fantastic. So are you taking a meeting transcript, loading it into the Craig bot saying, give me the email and it just done?
Yeah. Well, my law partner, Michael Hill, who
Yeah.
we probably put on one of these episodes at some point. Mike is really a genius with this stuff. Not so much as can do what you guys do, but on an amateur level, he loves working with technology. He created a string using Zapier. So we use otter.ai to dictate, like right after a client meeting. I'll open up Otter and then I'll dictate what happened during the meeting. And then I'll say, scheduling team, you need to do this. Drafting team, you need to do that. Funding team, you need to do this other thing. Okay. So Mike created a string with Zapier that would take all of that. Well, first, by the way, we have a virtual assistant that we've employed. We've employed virtual assistants in the Philippines, and they take the AI that the Otter and clean it up. They listen to it and make sure that all of the names are spelled correctly and that it heard me correctly with the facts, heard me correctly with numbers and things of that nature. And by the way, they're very inexpensive. We got these virtual assistants to do this. And then Mike's string will then take it and it'll create an email that can go to the client about it. It can create a blog. If I wanted to write a blog story, because I'm always writing blogs, I'm always creating content. So it'll create a blog based on any particular, uniqueness of this particular conversation. A lot of them we never use because there's nothing really unique, striking about it. And it'll create some other things based on all of that. And then we pick and choose what we want to use. So yeah, that's
Now,
how.
were you doing all of this before? And so you were doing it before it was just manual, or were these like new capabilities or these new things that you're able to do that are just supercharging everything
Yeah,
else?
most of it is new capabilities. And a lot of times I'd finish a client meeting and I just would not have the time to get out an email with a summary. The only time I could ever do that is if a paralegal was with me or one of my associate attorneys was with me and they could write it for me and then I would edit it. But everybody's just so busy in my office that we can't like have two people on a meeting, on a Zoom call, or in a meeting where we record it if we were to record it, and those sorts of things. So what this is, a long-winded answer to your short question, is this is a new capability because we're able to do so much more quickly.
So can you walk me through, I think this is going to be a really key point. Can you walk me through sort of how, because I would imagine that this Zapier automation didn't just come to be,
Yeah.
right? So can you walk me through a little bit of how you iterated on this so
Yeah,
that,
that Mike would
as
be
you
able
iterated, oh, yeah, I'll ask Mike.
Mike will
Yeah.
do a much better job. And by the way, you can see that I'm not a rugged individualist. I love the technology. I love using the technology, but I'm not exactly sure exactly how Mike made this go this way or that way. I know, he had to integrate several programs. He had to integrate Otter, Outlook, Zapier itself. What else? Word. There's all these different programs. I know he's used Claude in some respects, which is another AI program. So he's used all of this to create the end result. And that's one of the things that I would suggest that lawyers think about, whereas I have a Mike Hill who likes this and can kind of play around. He just loves doing that on the weekends or nights. And I'm really good at creating content. Most people don't have a Mike Hill sitting around. So they need an Evan Ryan. And by the way, I still need Evan Ryan, even though I have a Mike Hill. But my point being is, this is something we've learned in our entrepreneur coaching program is who, not how. You don't have to learn how to do it. You just need to know a who that can do it for you. And yeah, you're going to spend some money. But, the long and short of it is you hope that return on that investment of money and time is worth it. So yeah, I mean, that'd be the answer to your question.
Yeah, I'm actually going to come at the exact same thing, but I think from the opposite perspective.
Okay.
One of the things, especially in the professional fields, we see this. The media says, and Silicon Valley say, and all these tech people are always saying AI is coming, or every day it seems like AI is changing everything is like one of these headlines. First of all, it's preposterous, but second of all, I mean, AI is great, but it's not like every day the whole world is turning on its head. So all the time there's all these WhatsApp groups and Slack groups and all these things related to AI. And what I think a lot of people are doing is they're selling this idea that you don't know about AI. Therefore, you need to be an AI expert, or you need to start understanding, learning, upskilling about AI so that you can be prepared for what's about to come. And I am in complete agreement with you, but taking the other side, think that that's the exact wrong approach.
I agree.
If you're a lawyer, if you're a lawyer and you're not really that, well-versed in technology, or you know enough to be dangerous, but not enough to be good, why on earth would you start becoming an AI expert? It's like back in the 90s, would you become an internet expert?
Right.
Like, no. But what I think is supremely valuable is to become a true expert in what you want your future to be.
Yeah.
And then I promise the AI will be waiting for you, or the people that are there that will be waiting for you. And probably it'll be faster, it'll get it done easier, and it'll be cheaper.
Well, I'll tell you as a layman, you look out there and every day, I'm on some AI threads and there's discussion of some new AI program, Claude, Perplexity, ChatGPT, what Google has. What do they have? They have their own Gemini. And then I saw one that creates charts. I forget the name of that one. I mean, it's just overwhelming, right? You could there's just so much to know. And especially when you're not an engineer who's well-versed in that. So Evan, what should somebody like me do to even know where to start? Like for example, when I started with the ChatGPT, I kind of, you can have some fun with it, asking it stupid questions, but then, I learned a little bit more about, the Craig bot, and then how you can create letters and things like that, which really isn't all that difficult to do. Um, but then, what should somebody like me, what should I do when I'm looking at this stuff and saying, geez, I don't even know where to begin to tell somebody like Evan what I need or want.
Yeah. So let's start with assigning a timeline. Because I think a lot of times when people answer this question, they sort of they want to answer it with a silver bullet. It's like, all right, in 2 weeks
Yeah.
you're going to be done.
Like,
So let's set, yeah, it's like not it's not going to happen. So let's set like a 90-day timeline because I can manage around 90 days. So the first thing is be comfortable just experimenting. So start to experiment every single day. Experiment. And I would experiment with two tools, Perplexity.ai and ChatGPT. And that's it. So let's go into reasons for both, and then we'll go into the next phase. So the reason to start with Perplexity.ai, I love this tool. I'm not affiliated with them. I just think that they're the best, is because this is your replacement to Google. So what Perplexity does is you type in a question, you have a search, you want to know some information. Perplexity breaks down your question into search terms. It goes out to the internet, it reads a whole bunch of sources, and then it summarizes those sources and it cites its answer. Or I'm sorry, it summarizes those sources, it cites them, and it gives you an answer. So
yeah, that citation is wonderful because you don't want to start quoting things that really don't exist out there, which AI tends to do.
yeah, the challenge with ChatGPT for that case, and they're trying to fix it, and they're coming out with their own competitors to Perplexity, but the challenge with ChatGPT is that it's so very confidently wrong.
Yeah.
And so it may have 10 data points that ChatGPT says, and 9 of them are correct. The problem is you don't know which one is incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
And so where I think Perplexity is so valuable is it allows you to kind of like trust the dealer, but cut the cards.
Yeah.
So if you want to check the citation, you can.
Yep.
Perplexity is just so I don't go to Google anymore. It's like Perplexity is the only thing that I use. I think I save about 10 hours a week. Like my recommendation would be just take like a month, only use Perplexity.ai instead of Google. And then take one day and don't use Perplexity, only use Google, and tell me how delightful you think that Google search experience is.
That's right.
Because it is going to not be good.
I agree.
And then from there, once you've experimented with that, you can experiment with ChatGPT too. Understand what the differences are. Maybe use it to form an email. Use it to write a blog. Use it to do some kind of creative things. But then I think, secondly, after you do that for the first month, the second month is keep track of all the stuff that you do. So here's sort of like the second mindset. So the first mindset is experiment, experiment, experiment. Now, that doesn't mean signing up for every flavor of the day tool, but
Right.
it does mean constantly using it and constantly seeing what do you like? What do you not like? What are the things that are working that are not working? Then in the second month, my mindset around AI is if it doesn't save me time, what is the point?
Right.
And so now what we want to do is we want to start applying AI to actual business cases. So first, keep track of everything that you do, every single task that you do. It's not going to be a fun exercise, but keep track. And then next to it, write down how much time it takes. It's like in a second column. And then in the third column, score it on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 means I hate this and I never want to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, so once you have that and you're already good at ChatGPT and Perplexity, start trying to experiment how ChatGPT or how Perplexity can help you save time doing the ones and twos.
Yeah. I agree.
And then after that, you can take the exploration however you would like. You can think, okay, I want to transform my business. Okay, I want to try out other tools. Okay, I want to give this to my team. Okay, I want to hire an AI expert. I could do automation, whatever it is. But, just to get your feet wet, I think those are the kind of the two things. And then if it takes you a third month, it takes you a third month. I get it. Life comes up. I like to go on vacation too,
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Certainly.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think is important to think about when you're a lawyer or you're a CPA or financial advisor, or somebody in some kind of an office sort of a setting, is you have a front stage and you have a backstage. So far, what you and I have been talking about a lot is the backstage, things that does not relate to the actual client experience that he or she has in your office. But there's a lot of front stage things that AI could do as well. For example, it's my understanding that AI could take something like this podcast episode and break it up into smaller segments and stick it out there on social media to attract
Yeah.
audience, to attract people. We played around a little bit with that without much success. We're not real thrilled with what it's supposed. I forget the name of the program. You probably know what program I'm talking about, but it's supposed to be able to chop up something like this, put it out there in social media, and then rate, which parts of this might get more eyes because of the content.
Yeah.
Do you know which program I'm talking about with that?
There are a bunch of programs that do that. I have one that does it. It's the same one. I can walk you through what's going to happen with this episode afterwards if you'd like, because
Yeah,
I've got a whole thing. Okay, so what's going to happen with this episode after we do it is I'm going to upload it to a program called Descript. Descript. It's $35 a month. It's awesome. I have only ever recommended 3 AI products: Perplexity.ai, ChatGPT, and Descript.
Okay.
This is awesome. So what it does is you upload the podcast to it, and then it transcribes the podcast automatically. Right. And it makes it so that if you delete a word in the transcription, it deletes it from the podcast. So it makes editing a podcast like editing a Word document. Oh, wow. Yeah. It's really good. So what's going to happen is I'm going to upload it to Descript. I'm going to ask its AI to find all of the areas of our conversation that were unclear or where we were rambling or, stuff like that. It's going to find all of those things. And then either by hitting a check or an X, I will be able to approve keeping that in the discussion or deleting it. By the way, when it removes it from the podcast, it removes from the audio and the video.
Okay.
That will take maybe 2 minutes.
Okay.
So the podcast will be de facto edited in less than 5.
Okay. And then
after that,
tell me what happens as a chop,
so
and how does it figure out how long of a segments, how does it rate them and all those sorts of things?
So then what I'll do is I'll hit a button that says create clips. It'll ask me, who's your audience? What are the, give me a little bit of instructions here. What kind of clips that you want to create? I'm going to say the audience is something like lawyers and high achieving entrepreneurs that are interested in AI and they want to use it to transform their business. It's going to find 5 different sort of clips or areas of the transcript that it thinks are the most compelling for that group. It's then going to automatically create separate files with the audio, with the video, and with the transcript right there. I can go in, I can do the exact same editing process that I did for the big podcast, but for all 5 of those clips. On hitting one button, I will export all of those things and I'll be able to upload them to the social media tool. Wow. After that, this is where things get fun. What I will do is I will take the transcript, I will copy and paste it into ChatGPT. It will then turn it into a blog post with an embedded YouTube link, because I can, I'll be posting this on YouTube. A blog post with an embedded YouTube link. It will turn it into it'll give me copy for 3 different LinkedIn posts. I'll also give ChatGPT the transcripts to all 5 of the clips, those little social media clips. It will, which by the way, also, because there's just so much going on, sorry. It also adds captions to the video and it adds captions to the clips.
Yeah. Would it add background music if you wanted or?
Oh yeah. I can cut in images. I can cut in other videos if I want to. And all of that takes place with just a couple of button clicks, literally drag and drop, like you're doing a PowerPoint.
Gotcha. Yeah. You're not done yet. So go ahead.
No, I'm not done yet. Yeah. So I'll walk you through just how much time I save. So where are we at? So I've taken the transcript, I put it into ChatGPT. It's going to give me the whole blog post, including an embedded YouTube link. It's going to give me 3 LinkedIn posts, kind of copy and all that stuff, different types of hooks, different types of calls to action. So we can test the different types of hooks and calls to action. I'll put the transcripts for all 5 of the clips in there. It'll give me LinkedIn sort of copy, also YouTube Shorts copy, for those descriptions. And then I will take it, I will upload all of those things to LinkedIn, upload them all to YouTube. And I'll send an email off to Craig, to you, when the podcast is released. And I'll say, here's where we are. So
That's
what will I have gotten at the end of this? A podcast on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and YouTube, a video on YouTube, 5 clips that are on YouTube Shorts and that are on LinkedIn. I'll get 3 posts on LinkedIn. I'll get a blog post, well SEO'd, and with the embedded YouTube link, all right there. That whole process takes 20 minutes.
that's
I
amazing.
can do an entire month's worth of podcasts in 2 hours.
Yeah, incredible.
It is awesome.
And so that's front stage, and
Yeah.
of course you have to have a YouTube channel set up, and Spotify and Amazon and iTunes, or podcast iTunes,
Apple and all those things.
Apple,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So you have to have all that set up beforehand. But once you've done that, boom, you just upload it. And does it? Well, how about a dashboard to see how these are all doing? Is that possible through? What's the name of this program again?
So the editing program is called Descript.
Descript.
No, a
That's
dashboard.
not a dashboard would be something else. What would a dashboard
No.
look like, and what's
So
that?
what we use Buffer. So Buffer is our kind of scheduling platform.
Mhm.
And so that collects some analytics. The companies are kind of difficult about getting analytics out of it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. They don't
that
want
actually kind of,
they just want you to
no,
that you get the
yeah,
right.
they just want you to do ads. It turns out the analytics platforms work really well when you're paying for ads, but no, actually so what we do is right now we sort of like manually check a couple of times a month just to see what's going on.
Yeah.
It probably sounds like marketing is like the thing that I love to do. It's not. I love to tinker with AIs and I love to write. And so I use the AIs because I don't like to do podcast editing and that kind of thing, but also I like to take care of that. So we check a couple times a month, but what we're going to start doing is we're going to start tracking it all in Excel, having some Excel dashboard.
Okay. Yeah.
It's the only way to do it.
You could probably automate that for the most part in Excel, can't you?
I'm hoping to. Yeah.
Yeah. So, one of the things that, I was hoping to work with you on, and something we need to talk about outside of this podcast episode is, what we're developing. If it, what do they call that? Where you have a user interface program? It's
Software as a service.
yeah, a GUI.
Oh yeah, a GUI, like a graphical user interface,
Graphical.
or a WYSIWYG. What
Yeah.
you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I think would help a lot of lawyers, CPAs, accountants, because many of them aren't even as familiar with all this stuff as I am. And I don't consider myself an expert by any stretch of the imagination. If you had a GUI, if you had a graph, and by the way, what's so funny is, so I was talking to Mike Hill, my law partner, about this, and he goes, well, we need a GUI that does this. I go, GUI, to me, that's like chewing gum, or I don't know what he was talking about. He goes, graphical user interface. It's kind of like all of the programs used in Windows, I guess, are GUIs, right? Because
Mhm.
you go on, you log in, and you do certain things. What would be really nice is if we had something like that, rather than us having to figure out, okay, what prompts do you need to give the AI to do X, Y, and Z, to do this step, to then, zap it over to, Outlook, and then maybe block and copy into Word on on a letterhead or something like that. You had something that just automatically did it, but all you had to do was fill in some blanks and check some boxes. How far away is that from what people are doing? Or is that even
No,
possible? Or is it changing too fast that it's not really prudent to do that?
couple of answers. I'm not sure if you're going to like any of them.
Okay.
That's one of the holy grails, I think, of where we're at with AI right now, is where I can just speak and then the AI is doing the tasks for me,
Right.
essentially. Or I have like a really nice interface where I could just click a bunch of buttons and then the AI, puts it together for me. Um, if you ask the folks in California, they say it'll happen next year.
Okay.
Um, I have a hard time believing that it'll work super well next year. Like usually it's possible and it worked well are two very different timelines.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
agree.
I will write a prescription. I will write a prescription. So here's what I've found is best for those sorts of things. And this is, one of the things that a lot of people fall into is it's trap that a lot of people fall into is they think that they have to learn how to do prompt engineering.
Right.
Um, I find prompt engineering to be an insane term. Like
Why
the
why
computers,
call that an insane term? I want to hear.
because the computers, these AIs, prompt engineering is like trying to integrate or working with an AI and turn it into flashcards.
Okay.
Right? It's like if I want to do this, then I have to say that. If I want to do this, I have to say that. If I want to do this, then I have to say that.
Yeah.
Whereas, that worked for the old way of doing computers where you clicked a button and you got a particular output. But now it's much more like interacting with an assistant. It's just that the assistant is digital. And so my preference or the way that I get the best outcomes and everybody that we coach, the way that they get the best outcomes with working with these AIs is to just type like you would talk. So just talk to it like it's a human. Tell it what you like and what you don't like. And
Yeah.
so what I would recommend to you and to Michael is actually to do voice to text. So when you want to have something like this, say like, hey,
Google
I
has
want you to build me. Yeah.
Does Google have some kind of an ad? I put it on my system. What's it called? It's a add-in, or what do you call it on the Google
An
search?
add-in. Yeah.
And you just talk to it, and it'll put it right into the program. So it'll put it right into ChatGPT, or it'll put it right into Perplexity. Is that
That is
possible?
exactly what I would do.
Okay.
And like, don't worry about don't worry about us. If you ramble, don't worry about it. The computer will take care of it. Like, just sort of like speak your mind. Even if you get stuff out of order, it doesn't matter. Just speak your mind. I wanted to do this, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this. And what, oh, and I forgot about that. And blah, 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 blah. And usually the computer is like 100 times better, not 10 times, 100 times better at sorting out what you were trying to say than you are.
Mm.
And so I think that probably there will be graphical interfaces for these sorts of things next year. I mean, maybe Zapier will roll something out this year, but I don't think that that'll be the optimal solution. I think the optimal solution is just talking to your phone and letting the computer tell you, okay, now click this button, then do this, then do this, then do this.
But you think that these programs, what I think, I'm not sure that all these will do right away without using something like Zapier, is integrating, let's say, ChatGPT with Outlook, with Word, with some other program. I mean, I mean, you can't just do that within ChatGPT by itself, or can you?
I think they're starting to roll out that feature. Um, you know, Speaking
Replacing Zapier, in
specifically,
other words, is that what it's doing? It's replacing Zapier, or what is it doing?
it does kind of seem like it's starting to compete with Zapier, but I think that they'll probably they'll find different niches, is
Okay.
my sense. Um, Zapier will be, in my opinion, probably for small multi-step automations. Um, ChatGPT in there, I think it remains to be seen what ChatGPT will do with integrating into Outlook and integrating into Google Drive and G Suite and those sorts of things. They'll probably do something. But I think that there will be AIs that are integrating into your software suite sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Another thing I forgot to mention is it'll also go into teams and then assign. Within teams, we have drafting team, funding team, scheduling team, and it'll automatically put the to-dos in those teams
Nice.
related to the client that I happen to be talking about. So
That's really good.
yeah, I mean, think about if you're a lawyer, if you're a CPA, if you're a financial planner, and you just got off the phone with the client, there's like 4 or 5 different things that have to happen. You don't want to do all of them. Hopefully you're not doing all of them, but you want to just dictate something that will automatically go into the to-dos of those different team members. AI can do that now, you know, so that's what's so exciting to me, is the fact that it can delegate and time save for me without a whole lot of effort on my part.
I got a question, kind of shifting directions a little bit here. I think there are a lot of conversations, rightfully so, about ways that you can use AI in any particular industry. But I don't think that there are a lot of conversations around what you think are the wrong ways
Hmm.
to use.
Hmm.
So, take a second to think about it if you want to. My question for you here is, what do you think, looking at the next, let's just look at 2 years, the capabilities that we have, what do you think are and just in general, the way that your world works, what do you think are the wrong ways to be using AI?
Actually, I can think of a couple examples off the top of my head. Um, you know, Fairly recently from us recording this, Trump's team, his legal team, was chastised for writing a memorandum of law that given it to a judge, and a lot of the citations didn't stand for the legal principles in which they used in the brief. And obviously, what those attorneys did is they relied on AI to write the brief for them, and consequently, they got their rear ends handed to them in many ways. And now, I mean, that could be ethical issues, that could be civil actions, it could be all sorts of bad things. So, one of the wrong ways is relying on AI to do your work for you. In my field, one of the challenges in my field is it's constantly changing. In order to be a good estate planner, you need to know partnership tax, you need to know corporate tax, you need to pass through corporate tax, you need to know transfer tax, which is gift, estate, generation skipping transfer tax. You don't need to know individual tax. I mean, you need to know a lot of different fields, and you need to know how those fields integrate with one another and with will and trust law. So, um, when you said earlier in the episode here, will AI replace a lawyer? I don't see it anytime soon, because there's a lot of art there as opposed to science, you know, and there's also a lot of risk taking, in the sense that you tell the client, this little maneuver has worked before for other clients. For some clients, it's not worked. Either because of the variables just didn't pan out the way they were, the growth rate of the assets, the interest rates, and so forth. But it could also not work because the laws weren't applied correctly, or they weren't applied in a way that would secure a great outcome. So that's us lawyers, we tend to be long winded. So when you're talking about where it can't, I don't think can be used to replace professional judgment. Okay. And also to double check that what the AI is giving you is actually true and correct. It could, for example, there's a lot of articles that are published that other lawyers might say, yeah, but I'm not sure that really works. Okay. But if the AI finds that article and uses it as a basis for what you're creating, without telling you, there's some counter viewpoints here. And how's the AI going to know that? Right. Or if you don't even ask it, are there counter viewpoints out there? It may not find the article. So yeah, I mean, I think the problem is relying on AI is too significant of a tool. It's to me, it's very much like having an assistant that can shorten your time frame to do certain things, but yet as a professional, it's still your job to make sure that what you're putting out there is accurate. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it does. And the way that I'm thinking about it right now is, are you considering using this technology as a tool, or are you considering using it as a replacement?
Yeah, it's definitely a tool.
It's a tool.
A lot of people say, well, AI is going to replace me. Dan Sullivan, a strategic coach, says AI won't replace you, but people who know how to use AI might replace you,
Yeah.
because they know how to use this tool. It's kind of, I'll give you a story. This goes back to, I was a young associate attorney at the firm that I'm at now. I've been there 32 years. And when I first became a partner, they said, Craig, we're offering you partnership. And I said, I'll accept it on 3 conditions. Now, at the time, this firm was, almost 70 years old. And, they had a nice client base, very well respected in the community. And they said, you're imposing conditions on us. And I said, yeah. I said, there are some things that we need to have that I don't want to buy into a dinosaur, like this is a long time ago, network computers, uh, email. We didn't have email. We didn't have a computer on everybody's desk. Okay. Can you imagine running a law office without email? One of my partners said, I will never use email. Well, once we got it, he was like on every listserv known to man that had to do it. He was an Iowa Hawkeye and he just wanted he wanted to be on every listserv to know about Iowa Hawkeye recruiting and games and all that stuff. So I look at AI the same way, in the sense that today having and using AI is very, very similar to having and using the internet, having and using email, voice. We used to have those. I don't know if most of your viewers and listeners probably aren't old enough to remember this. This is showing my age. So we had pink while you were out slips. So it would say, John called, his number is 555-3694. And you wouldn't know, why did John call? What was it about? You just had to call him back and then just hash it all out, as opposed to just a quick team message that we have now. John called about X, Y, and Z, so you're more prepared. But I guess my point is that AI is very much like those other tools that we used and all got used to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, if I had to leave everybody with one thing, that's one of the things, or with just a couple of things, that's one of the things that I would leave you with is, we define AI as just computers doing stuff that humans shouldn't do anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like going back to one of my, like, sort of my reason for being is I like to do fun stuff and I don't like to do boring stuff. And I've never met anybody who likes to do boring stuff and didn't like to do fun stuff. And so if all we're doing is we're talking about giving computers jobs that humans shouldn't do anymore, and probably those jobs are going to be boring stuff, or tasks are going to be boring stuff, then that means that we've done this before with email, with cloud storage, with network computers, with all sorts of things where, we didn't have technology. Now we have technology and our lives are undoubtedly better thanks to it. And so, I think that that's a really great point. It's like, we did this back then. We've done it with technology. We're going to be able to do it again.
Yeah. Better, faster, cheaper, with better results. Let me ask you this. So looking forward, I know 5 years is probably eternity in the AI world, but where do you see all this going in 5 years?
5 years, I think, is too hard.
Yeah, let's go
Three,
two
I
years.
think the only thing I can do is 3.
Okay, let's go
Um,
2 years out.
I think that there will be a lot of change, but it will feel very normal.
Hmm.
And so, I think that, like, the last couple of years, I think, haven't felt very normal.
No.
I think the next couple of years will feel more normal, just
Why?
because.
Because people are getting used to it, or what?
Yeah, yeah, and the learning curve is starting to go down. Like, people are more familiar with it, and I think that it'll started to use, or it'll start to be used in ways that really improve people's lives. And so I think that people are really on the same page. Now, it remains to be seen, like, will all call center employees lose their jobs? I don't know. I just wrote a thing about it. And apparently somebody from the call center, who worked at the call center, was like, yeah, all the call centers are going to close, but that's okay because this job sucks anyway. And I was like, okay, well, that's, one way of thinking about it. Um, I think that let's talk about, like, the chat GPTs and the complexities. It seems quite clear that they're going to continue to get better, but I think that they will level out over the course of the next couple of years. It will become a little bit more like an S curve. So they'll get faster. You'll have your own. So, like, your practice will have its own version of ChatGPT that'll have all of its files, all of its documentation. It'll just be you. So you won't have, like, nobody else will have access to it. It'll be in your own network. That will happen across every single business. So every single business will start to have its own sort of internal knowledge base where they can chat with it and the AI is giving it answers.
Hmm.
I think that we're really ripe for a lot of tasks to be automated in a very short amount of time. The limiting factor in automating tasks will be humans being able to adjust to how much time that they've saved.
Yeah.
Um, and to give you a sense of like sort of, or I guess to like double click on what I mean there, usually when we do an automation, we're really a hero in not in automating 5, 10, 20 minute tasks, but in automating, this is 1,000 hours a year. This is 2,000 hours a year. This is 3,000 hours a year that have been completely automated. And usually we're able to do that sort of an automation, but it takes 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months for the team to sort of like mentally rearrange around this newfound capacity. So I think that there's going to be a lot of automations that are like that. Um, I mean, my personal sense is that everybody's jobs are about to get way more interesting because we're not going to be doing so much boring stuff.
Yeah.
I think that there's very high likelihood that these sort of like text to image AIs and text to voice AIs and text to video AIs. Like, I think that there will be a lot of AI deepfakes out there, both good
Yeah.
and bad. So, like, I could have a deep fake of myself and use that to create like a really good deep fake of myself. But like it sounds just like me. It acts just like me. And you can use that to create more marketing, be more forward facing.
That next gen,
Uh,
or which program is that where
so
even
Hey Gen.
Hey Gen,
Um,
right.
Hey Gen is really good. There's a new AI sort of like text to image model. It just came out last week or 2 weeks ago, from a company called Black Forest Labs. And it's so good that when I wrote about it, I said like, "Uh-oh, the deep fakes are actually good now."
Mm.
And so, I think we're gonna have some questions to solve there, 'cause, that I'm not an
Yeah,
expert
from a
in how to solve
malpractice
that, but
standpoint, by the
yeah.
way, this when you think about it, what happens if one of the things that I do is I'll do a video review of somebody's, will or trust using a program called Loom, okay? So I'm down in the lower left or right-hand corner, and I'm talking about a document that's scrolling behind me, and I highlight the document so that the clients know what they're looking at, so when they get the hard copy of it or they get the electronic copy of it, it's also highlighted so they can follow along with my, my cues, what I'm talking about. And the clients love it. The clients absolutely love it. Why do they love it? Because, if they just hear me do it once, they don't remember any of it. They can't share it with their kids or their CPA or their financial advisor. They could do all that. They could share it with these individuals. They could watch it a few times, which my clients do before they come in and we review it in person. By the way, it saves, a review that used to take me an hour and 20 or 30 minutes now takes 10 or 15 because I sent the video, that took me 10 or 15 minutes to go through. So it's saving untold number of hours. But here's the thing. What if someone made a deep fake of me? And let's say I'm retired or I'm dead. And they said, well, Craig said this, and that's malpractice. So, how are we gonna guard
Yeah.
against something like that?
Yeah,
If I might use HeyGen, HeyGen, you can't do this yet because you can't scroll the thing behind you and everything. But I'm sure that technology will come out within a year or two, right? You know,
yeah,
we had
so
to guard
what
against.
happens when the same technology is created for black hat purposes?
Mhm.
Um I don't know the answer. I think that
They're gonna be
I
time
would
and date
imagine
stamps
there
it
are
and
teams of people at all of the big companies that are trying to solve this problem. The
yeah,
cat's already out of the bag. It's just that the pieces haven't been put together yet. I would say that this is the only real worry about AI that I have. Is what to do in this circumstance. Like there are a lot of ways that you can take it. Like um, I think that the big PR disaster is not going to be, or the big disaster, not just PR disaster, it's an actual disaster. The big disaster that is going to rally everybody's mindset around it is going to be around teen mental health. So teen mental health and deep fakes is going to be really something.
yeah,
Um, in your space, I just don't know. Like my sense is that probably what will happen is there will be a certificate of authenticity applied to recordings of Zoom videos and Teams videos and in images on iPhone and on Android. And there's gonna be some like international standard for like this is approved. Maybe that's a blockchain type of thing. I don't know, but I do spend some time thinking about it. It's just that, I'm only one person. So I only have a couple of ideas
Yeah.
there.
It's well, it's like, I think the way I look at it is it's a real exciting time. And
I do
and
too.
yeah, there are potential downsides, but I think that anybody who's in any kind of field that's similar to mine needs to embrace this. If you don't embrace it, I think you're going to be like my law partners who didn't want email. It's coming at you. You're going to have to use it. Just get familiar with it, or hire some people who are familiar with it, and get going. I mean, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Yeah, mine is the technology is evolving whether or not you want it to.
Mhm.
And so you don't have to be an expert in the tech, but be an expert in your future. And as long as you treat the technology as a tool for your bigger future, it's not something that um, is a competitor to you. It's
Right.
something that's an assistant, or it's on your tool belt. It's not a competitor. And so, my opinion is experiment like hell. Use Perplexity. It's just going to make your life so much better. Use Perplexity, experiment like hell, and start with all the stuff that you don't like to do. And I think that that'll solve a lot of the problems.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you want to get in touch with Craig, head to craighersch.com or the number 4 freedompractice.com. I'll drop them in the show notes. If you want to
Yep.
get in touch with me, teammateai.com. Craig, any last questions for me?
I think we covered a lot of ground, but I'd like to maybe do a follow-up episode in a few months, see where we're at, and maybe go a little bit deeper in some of these subjects.
I would too. This has been an absolute blast. So thanks very much. This has been just awesome.
Oh, thank you.